Kim, we made it happen. Happy to have you here. I know we you reached out a while back to hop on, so glad that you're here today.
Thank you. It is going to be fun.
Yeah, let's do it. And so you wrote something. One of the questions was, do you learn better reading, watching? What what was that question, and what made you decide to write it? I wanted to ask you.
Absolutely. So I am a big believer that people have one or sometimes two primary modes of learning. They either read, they watch, they listen, or they got to get their hands involved. So of those four, so much material is out there. But for example, I love to read. I will not watch a video. If you send me a video, I'm probably not going to watch it unless I can get a transcript of it. And so, as content creators, we're trying to help people get results. It's not about the content, it's about the results. And so, early on, I learned to ask people how they learn best. And a lot of people don't know the answer to that. But I will say, do you like to read, watch, listen, or get your hands involved? And so sometimes they'll have a couple ways, great. But then I can customize the material that I'm sending them so that it coincides with their learning modality.
Yeah, I mean everyone's a little different. I was just having the conversation with someone the other day. I've been working with them. The holidays happened. Everything had to go on pause. And I was like, of what I've sent you, what has been the best one for you? And I was like, do you not like the videos? They're like, no, I like the videos. I was like, all right, we'll continue doing the videos. We'll continue doing the writing. That way you have both. My wife calls me a little crazy. I'll have a book and I'll listen to an audiobook at the same time at like 1.75 speed.
Yes, and some people like to do both, right? They listen, but then they want to read also, or they want to have a physical copy so that they can make highlights in or what have you. And I think it's such an awesome thing about how our world exists right now because we get better results that way.
And what made you decide to put that question in the chat before we hopped on? What was it about the question that like made you
Be-
decide to like be so passionate in regards to figuring that out? Because a lot of people never figure that out.
Yeah, because I want to help people put the rubber on the road. There's just nothing worse than spending time doing something, but then not getting results. So I'm going to turn it around and ask you. I think I heard that you like to listen. Do you prefer listening as your best learning modality? And then what's your second? Because we always usually have a second.
I prefer videos and stories. It helps me learn things. It makes it more fun. Kind of like in school, they would put on Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I could remember everything. But if my teacher was sitting up there and it was not the best teacher and they weren't exciting, I wasn't in there. So I typically like to watch and take notes at the same time.
Love it.
That's the way I like to do things.
Hence, we have YouTube channels, right?
Yeah, and you have a YouTube channel, right? Like, how's that been going? What have you been doing on there? What sort of content have you been building?
Well, because videos are a challenge for me, I think my YouTube channel is actually quite pathetic. Nevertheless, funnily enough, I enjoy recording. Like what you and I are doing now, that's a piece of cake for me. But as you know, there's a whole backstage space in the video world. Yes, we can just throw things on social media unedited, but in YouTube, you want to have a little bit of professionalism. So it took me a long time to get the backstage part of our team organized.
Hmm.
And I feel like maybe we're there with our YouTube channel. It's fairly well broken up. There's a lot of values videos on there, like me as a human being telling stories about my values
Hmm.
and other things that we trust are valuable, right? Different use of that word. So I encourage people that learn best via video to check it out. And of course, if I'm teaching them something specific, I'll send them the specific video because the worst thing that we can do is throw somebody to a channel that's got a lot of stuff on it and just expect them to figure it out.
Yeah, what was the toughest part about sitting in front of the camera for you?
Um, it's a great question. I really have kind of always been camera ready. So there isn't a tough part about sitting in front of it at all. It's literally what happens after I hit stop record. Like all of that, completely overwhelming. And even just the act of putting the raw data in a folder or a file where I know the video editor, whose name is Cole, by the way, and I'm so grateful for him, can get to it. And then knowing that it's got to get uploaded, downloaded, cross loaded, chopped and sliced and diced and blah. I mean, that's the hard part for me. Even though I'm not doing the work, I know it needs to be done.
Yeah, and too many people nowadays, they don't want to invest in hiring people to do things for them. And ultimately they get stuck of like, oh, the video uploaded and then failed. I just spent 2 hours and 12 minutes attempting to upload this video. Now I have to start over.
Mm, crazy world. And it happens, right? Peter Diamandis is somebody that I enjoy following. And he says, AI is easy, AV is not.
A- AV like the
Right,
cord.
like plug the black cord into the right place, right? And I'm one of those people that I can look at a couple black cords and they're just all black cords to me. And my husband's like, well, it's a power cord or it's a HDMI cable or it's a USB, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, it's just a black cord.
Mm-hmm. Cause I saw that. Did you grow up on a farm? You live on a farm?
Both. So I grew up on a farm in Corvallis, Oregon. My parents gave me a milk cow when I was in fourth grade, and there's a whole money story attached to that. And I live on a farm now, and we have alpacas. And I'm happy to share any farm story you want.
Most kids want a horse or a pony, and you got a cow.
I got a cow because cows can be milked, milk can be sold, money can be made. And our farm, though my parents were teachers, our farm was designed to be productive. It was not a hobby farm, it was not a gentleman farm. It was designed to be productive. And my dad absolutely refused to have horses on the property for the very reason that you could argue they can be productive, but a typical kid's pony is not, as you're well aware.
Right. So your family was focused on having animals that give something back to the world rather than a horse is fun. You can ride a horse. They're beautiful to look at, but they don't really provide anything that us human beings can actually use other than to enjoy them.
You got it. And it's funny that you use the word give back because I know in your podcast community how important it is that you're giving to the other communities that you're involved with. And my coach, Dan Sullivan, told me a long time ago, and this is true of animals and it's true of you and I,
Hmm.
we're not giving back. That implies you took something. We're giving forward. And I love that distinction. I mean, I fall into using the give back word too, because everybody does. But really, when you think about it, we're giving forward. And I have such a mantra around give first because I believe that's how we get results in the world. Back to our learning discussion that we had, right? We want people to give to get results. So we need to give first in a way that they can. And when we do that, then we know that we'll get what we need also, but it's about giving forward. What do you think about that distinction?
It's tough in the beginning because typically there's people get stuck. People get stuck in giving too much, and then there's other people who constantly take. So finding that happy medium is the hard part, especially when it's in the beginning stages of you're looking to do something new and you feel like you're giving and you're giving and you're supporting other people and you feel like you're not getting any support or any reward back. That's the tough part. However, if you keep doing it, eventually it will turn around. It's just not up to you when it will turn around. You just have to do it because you want to do it and not do it because you expect something in return. Like if I give someone a gift, I don't expect them to buy me a gift.
It's so well said. And your point about the timing is so critical. And also the person, right? Like we may give forward into a space, and that particular space may not appear to ever return the favor. Yet this space over here may absolutely return the favor. And so you get this fun, ever evolving arena. And you said it really well. I mean, there are givers in this world and there are takers. And so we just need to decide who we want to align with.
Yeah, I remember there was like a funny quote. I'll probably butcher it, but I'll say it anyway. It said like, let a friend borrow $5 on Friday, and if they don't pay you back by Monday, money well spent.
Interesting. Yeah, that one requires some thought. That's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, you want to be helpful and you want to be ever I feel like most people want to be good, just some people just don't even know how to do it. But ultimately, you have to make sure that if you are doing something that you're taking like little mental notes on. It's like, oh, that person just like took it, didn't say thank you, and has no intention of ever doing anything nice for you in the future. It's like, all right, note taken,
Yep, noted. That's a favorite response of mine.
right? Because I mean, you were in the financial world, like, and you know that world is full of the very special people. A lot of them are, I wouldn't say, how do I say this nicely? A lot of them just want to make a lot of money and don't care how they want to do it. I'll just say it plainly, because I mean, ultimately, that's the mantra of the financial world. So, what was your experience when you were in there, like that led you to what you're doing now? Because obviously, you saw a better path for yourself.
Well, it is interesting. I, to be specific, did spend the first 30 years of my adult life helping people with their personal finances, specifically around the area of life insurance,
Hmm.
which is the redheaded stepchild of the financial services industry. And I prefer whole life insurance, which is the redheaded stepchild of the redheaded stepchild, right?
Hmm.
So it has been a fun journey. I still help people with that via my team. Nevertheless, having freedom from licensing and regulation requirements enables me to use the talents that God gave me in an even more effective way because I can spend more time having conversations with people like you, writing books, creating videos, doing podcasts. Our own podcast has over 600 episodes now. And it's a joy to do that and a way that I can help people learn and get the results like you and I have been talking about on those various modalities because holy cow, the personal financial state of most Americans, and this is true in Canada and I'm sure most other countries, but you and I focus on Americans, is unfortunate to say the least. So we know that it's an area that we can do good in. And yet you're right, there is a lot of typical financial experts out there, licensed and unlicensed, that are, you said it well, they're out for themselves.
Hmm. What are the like for someone who doesn't know, like what are those sort of regulations that really prevented you from doing these other activities that help spread your message to your audience?
Sure. Well, anytime you have a financial license, so it could be one of the series, so there's series 6 and 65 and 63 and 7 and a whole bunch of them, or the life insurance space or other even health insurance, other licenses around financial products using the word financial widely,
Hmm.
you're going to fall into regulatory environments where attorneys that believe that they know what's best are going to dictate what you can say and not say.
Hmm.
And I understand that space. I understand they have a job to do, and yet unfortunately, I think in many cases that doesn't help the consuming public, the American that we're trying to help, because it causes language to be confusing, and it sends people down trails that may not be helpful for them, and who knows what agendas are behind them, and there's just a arena there that is very restrictive, and especially around specific words that can be used. I think that was probably the biggest challenge that I had. And plus, there's just a time in life to shift gears for a whole variety of reasons. And holy cow, I've made my share of mistakes that we could do endless podcasts about. Nevertheless, I believe that I can serve best when I use the talent Father, Mother, God gave me in the best possible way. And so I'm a very conceptual person. I do enjoy speaking, and I speak best, as many people do, without restriction, script, bullet points that must be followed, etc. So just like you and I are having a conversation right now, yet this is going to go out to essentially the world. I mean, Americans, right? It's challenging to try to have a conversation like that if there's literally a list of words that you're not allowed to use.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what all the words are. When I worked with other folks that I attempted to partner with, they told me not to do these things, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it and see what happens. Because I've been listening to this new book. It's not a new book. I think it's like 25 years old, by Eckhart Tolle,
Yes.
like The Power of Now. And it's like, what problems do we have now? Nothing. There are no problems. Despite what people told me not to do, I've consistently done what people told me not to do because I believe if you do the right thing, it'll all work out.
I love it. And I really enjoy his writings. He's got two or three books out, and they're all very valuable.
Yeah, I think he's on Oprah's book club now. So he's definitely going to get a good audience out of that.
Yeah. Congrats to him for sure.
So, did you run into any hurdles like where attorneys were coming after you for what you were saying?
Oh, there's always hurdles when you're dealing with attorneys. Yes, they're ever prevalent. And so we do the best we can with what we've got, and trust that the work that we're doing is good and that it will be understood and benefited from. And that's really the thing, is to help people that are just trying to love their families, do good work in the world, and build wealth. And it is a very challenging environment because all of the large corporations and society at large want to take our money from us, right? The Amazon buy button is right there just asking to give us that dopamine hit. And the fill in the blank, the coffee shop down the street or whatever it is that's your thing, material items, all of which we want, are pulling at us constantly. And the ads that tell the stories are so appealing that it is a big challenge to save money today. And I mean, save as a verb, like put the dollars away, not saving because, oh, you saved money because you used a coupon and you got a $30 item for $20. That doesn't count.
So, do you have any like examples where you had someone like coming after you where you disagreed with what they were saying in terms? Because I mean, attorneys can do it. The thing with the attorneys is they have unlimited hours and their billable hours are much less than what someone else is going to pay. So when you have a company that, especially when people are targeted that aren't doing well financially and they're buying like a course online for 9.97 from their favorite financial influencer, like you can't, it's not feasible to hire an attorney to get back your 9.97. You would have to get a class action lawsuit, and that's going to take who knows how much time, and you'd have to find an attorney willing to do that for free. And most attorneys, they're compensated by the minute, the second.
Well, to answer your question, I think the biggest word that gets hung up on is the word guaranteed.
Hmm.
And there are truly only a few financial products that can use the word guaranteed. And I get that. And so, one of them, as an example, is whole life insurance. So, quick story, I, as we said earlier, and like a lot of people, came into the adult world with some financial knowledge. I mean, I had money during my childhood because of all the milk that I sold from the cows that we had. And so I knew some basic things. And, of course, this is all pre internet. So the learning process of my first job was at a bank.
Hmm.
And I got to see, I was on the loan side. So I did car loans and mortgages and that kind of thing. Banks in that era did not have investments or insurance or anything else. It was pretty simple checking, savings, car loans, maybe credit cards. So, because of that work, I got to see huge numbers of people's finances. Okay. We would call them balance sheets for the most part and income statements. And it was such an amazing learning experience because I just saw person after person after person, some of them doing, and all income levels, some of them doing very well with their finances, some of them doing poorly, and some of them doing both, right? Like they would make a lot of money and then lose a lot of money, that kind of thing. And so I was there 3 years and it was an amazing learning experience. And I really enjoyed my time there. Banks are very restrictive also. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Colby profile, Kolbe. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, I believe I took it, said I was a quick start.
Yes. So Colby identifies how you get results. It is not a personality profile. It identifies four main ways of getting results. And so one of them is fact find, which is pretty obviously defined. The second one is follow through, which is like your systems person following through and getting it done is part of that definition, but it's actually following a system, is what they mean by it. The third one is quick start, which is the jump in first, see how deep it is later, people that you and I are both. And then the fourth one is implementer, which is the person that uses implements. So it means a noun, not a verb. In other words, the guy that enjoys tools or the surgeon that has, various skills with their hands, etc. So the Colby profile indicated to me that I'm initiating quick start as you are. So I'm one of those like, go, jump first, figure it out later. And that doesn't work very well in the regulatory environment. Banks, insurance companies, brokerage houses, lawyers, you name it. And so it was important to me to be able to find a space where I could really use, because Colby says that they're putting English words around your God given talent. And so it was important to me. And I encourage everybody to pursue this, to find work that utilized that God given talent. So, just a quick aside, Colby is $55. I'm not compensated by them in any way, I'm not connected to them in any way. You can go to Kolbe.com. It's Kolbe, Colby, Kolb is in boy, e.com, and take the Colby A for adults, Colby Y for youth. And it is the best tool out there to figure out how we get results, which then we can apply to our work at hand. It's not so much that your Colby profile matches the work, it's that your Colby profile matches how you get the work done. Did you find that for yourself?
That the Colby test was accurate.
Yes, and that it identified how you got results in a way that was helpful.
I think it just brought to light like what I already like kind of knew. It's just
Yep.
like, all right, I've always been good at math. The only way you get good at math is by doing problems.
Uh-huh.
So the more problems you do, you get it wrong. You're like, why did I get it wrong? Why did I make that mistake? Why did I do that? Why? Just asking why a bunch of times. I mean, it's just like anything. I mean, that's just the way I like to do things. Whether it's hitting a golf ball, why did the ball go left? Why did the ball go right? And then just like then solving for the problem versus some people get stuck and never take action. And they're just always thinking about what could go wrong, what could go wrong. And then 25 years go by and they're still at the same job that they've been complaining about for 30 years, even though they've only been there 25 years.
Yep, well said. And it's why I like the Colby profile so much. I just recommend it to anybody that will listen. It's, I think, one of the best business tools out there. I think it's the best marriage tool out there, even though that's not really what it's designed to do. And I really, really encourage people to work with it
Mhm.
and to work with it with their children. Do you have children?
Yes, we have a young daughter right now.
How fun. Congrats. So I've got grandchildren, just one and a second one on the way here shortly. And it's interesting because in the financial competency space, so I'm separating out financial literacy, which is what you hear most people talk about, with financial competency. I believe that that work starts when we're at about 6 to 12 months old. Like as soon as we can see things that we want and indicate that we want them, we may not be speaking yet, but grabbing or eyes lit up or what have you, you can start some arena around financial competency. So, with the help of a brand called Dinner Table, we've actually developed a whole financial competency space called Prosperity Parents.
Hmm.
And what's interesting about it is, though it's clearly designed for literally teaching children from 1 to 18 financial competency, all of my clients who are adults and the parents, right, have said, this is so valuable. I love this stuff. It helped me. I learned things I didn't know, et cetera. Because most of us all went through high school and college with no financial training, right? And as you're well aware, even those of us that have gotten licenses, like the ability to take and pass a test for a license is not the same as the ability to know absolutely positively what works around people's finances. And so this space of prosperity parents has enabled us to be able to help people gain financial competency. And it's a fun environment, it's simple, it's easy to do, and it requires a little bit of daily effort or at least weekly effort, right?
Hmm.
There's never just one big thing. We're always looking for that one big thing that's going to get us the results that we want. But there is no such thing as one big thing in most cases. And it's why I like to ask how people learn best, because it's going to be a continued effort, and those micro wins, those little baby steps that we get progress around that help us get the results that we're seeking. And so if we know what way you learn best, then we can help you with the learning, which needs to be ongoing, like literally until the day you die, and start to bring in those actionable items that develop the competency around money and actually even contribute to parenting. I mean, parenting is a verb, right? And it's been a really fun space to help people with.
What does it look like? Is it like an online platform? Like what it sounds like it's probably interactive if it has to do with children.
Yes. So there's two aspects of it. One is an app where there is a community. And so prosperityparents.com, people can check out that space. It's a free community to have conversations with other parents that are dealing with this, literally anywhere, kids 1 to 18, and sometimes older. So that's the first part of it. And then there are paid for courses and the ability to have a coach for those that want a little bit more help. And it is so fun to do the work because, as I was saying, with just little tiny tweaks, you can get some very quick results. So I'll share with you, if you like, what I think is the starting question, especially if your child's 4 or 5 years old. And that is, would you like to have more freedom and responsibility? Now, those are big words, but be surprised as I'm sure you may know, what a 4 or 5 year old can figure out as it relates, especially to the word freedom.
Hmm.
I don't know anybody that's going to say no to that. And so that just because they're going to say yes, it just opens up a door to then use some of the very specific micro suggestions, little tiny things that can be done inside that prosperity parents community that are going to provide that child more opportunities for freedom and responsibility. And then, of course, there's trades, right? That then enable the parent to fast forward, shift about half of the cost of raising a child to the child. So I think the statistics are around like, I want to say it's $200,000 is sort of the average, and we're not talking college costs, but the average total cost for raising a child. Have you seen those types of statistics at all?
Yeah, I have. I have one friend. He's like, I'm only having two because each kid I have is costing me one Ferrari.
I love it. Yes, so well said. So whatever the number is, 100,000, 300,000, I think it's in the $200,000 range. And of course it depends on, your income level and all that, but just as a general rule of thumb, if we could teach strategies that would enable a family to shift half of that cost to the child because like the immediate question is what the heck, how? The child learns how to be a value creator. The child learns how to be a value creator. And at first, they create value in the home so that they can earn more freedom and responsibility.
Hmm.
And then the second half of that is they create value out in their community. And when they create value out in their community, they figure out ways to get paid for the creation of that value. Totally back to our discussion that we were having about giving first. And that enables that child, and we're talking 4 and 5 year olds, 7 and 8 year olds, 10 and 15 year olds. It enables that child to create so much value out in their community that they will earn dollars that then they can use to live their lives and pay for some of their expenses. Because here's a quick story. Think about the difference between your child that is going to go to a birthday party of a friend and the parent purchases and probably wraps the gift versus your child who earns the money, buys the gift, probably wraps it themselves. Now, think about the difference when that child goes to the birthday party. The child that has been handed a gift by the parent, they may not even know what it is, versus the child that earned the money and bought the gift for their friend.
Yeah, I mean, totally makes sense. I mean, kids are smart. You just have to allow them to make the choices. And some parents just make all the choices for all their kids, and then the kids never learn.
You got it.
So, yeah, I mean, my daughter's only 19 months. I'll be like, "Do you want one more of this or one more of that?"
Perfect.
You can't have both. You can only have
Yep.
one.
Yep.
Yeah. So, once she gets a little older, she'll start understanding some things. Um, One question I came up with actually for people to ask their children is, since we're on the subject, is how do you feel when a friend gets something that you don't have?
Ooh. Yeah. That generates some great discussion, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important because if children don't know the value of money, they're not going to respect it later. And
Yeah.
it's going to cause them to overspend or rely on their parents from now until forever. Like, oh, like, can you send me some money? And then, some parents just give it to them. They're just like, all right, here you go.
Yep. Well, I really encourage parents to not use the word chores. Like I grew up on a farm, right? We had chores. It's a negative word and it just goes down a whole bunny rabbit trail of entitlement. I also strongly encourage parents not to do allowance. You literally could say allowance is socialism. And that's, I'm not trying to make a political comment there. It's just not something that we typically would want our children to actually grow up thinking that money just came to them. And instead, to involve something that we teach inside the Prosperity Parents app, the three E's. So the first is expectations. So even for your 19-month-old, right? She has expectations. She has to eat her vegetables before she gets dessert or whatever. And so being clear on those expectations because the child is living in the home at age appropriate levels, of course, there are certain things that that child is to do. So expectations are important. But then we also want to have earnings. We want to have the opportunity to earn things, money, our way, more responsibility and freedom, right? We want to earn these. Nobody deserves anything, but you can earn them. And then the third E is expenses. And so, again, at age appropriate levels, you start to shift some of the expenses of raising that child to them. So, the very first one that's pretty logical is that gift giving space.
Hmm.
Another really easy example, especially for young kids, is the toys and trinkets, right? The stuff that they see at the grocery store or whatever that they want. And at an early level, I mean, you can have them earn a dime or a quarter for some activity that they have done that is above the expectation. So maybe the expectation is, for example, make your bed. I mean, it might literally be just pulling the cover up, right? But some form of neatness around the bed in the morning. And that's expected. There's no payment for that. But then they have the opportunity to earn if they can help do the laundry. My
Hmm.
sister taught her boys how to do their own laundry at age 5. She had a stool by the washing machine because, you know, in that era, the controls are all up top. They weren't down in front. And she taught them how to do their laundry. So again, age appropriate ways, they do the sheets, for example, or their clothes, and they get earnings from that. So there's expectations that they're not paid for, but then there's extra things that they can do for earnings that they're paid for. So then when you go to the grocery store and they're interested in that toy or trinket or candy or whatever it is, you say, great. If you earned some money and that's what you want to spend your money on, you go right ahead. Oh, you didn't bring your money? I'm sorry. We'll have to come back another time when you have it. And there's just a whole series of steps that can be applied at older and older and older ages using those three E's, the expectations, the earning, and the expenses to help your child gain more freedom and responsibility, and you to shift some of the expense of raising them to them.
This reminds me of when I had someone who was like interning for me. It was a paid internship, and they came to me and they're like, "Josh, can I get paid more?" I said, "Yeah. Are you willing to work more?" And they said no. And I was like, "Well, then you can't get paid more." And they're like, "Well, things have gotten expensive." I was like, "Well, I offered you a way to make more. You're just choosing not to take it."
Yep.
And it was a difficult conversation in the moment because they did not like my response. However, they like reached out to me like later, like, "Oh, I learned so much from you, like blah blah blah. Can you help me out with this?" And it was like a tough thing to do because when you have like a conflict, especially nowadays, people just don't know how to have a conversation around a conflict. Versus like you say something I don't like, I immediately shut down. Like you're wrong. It's like, well, let's understand how you came to that conclusion and let's figure out if there's a way around it. I offered him to work more. He said, I can't work more. I was like, well, I can't pay you more if you're not working more. Pretty simple because in the beginning, children, they have time, but their skills are pretty limited.
Well, one of the things that we have inside the Prosperity Parents community are a whole bunch of ideas for like ages 0 to 5 and then 6 to 9, or, broken down. And it's so fun to see the child who has to be trained, right? You're not going to just throw them the laundry, but the child that learns and then can apply, and then they start to figure out what they can do to be even better value creators. And it's such a wonderful thing to be able to teach them how to figure out how to be value creators, so that instead of asking that question, can I get paid more? Maybe that person would have come to you and said, here's how I can increase value. Maybe it's more time, maybe it's higher quality, maybe it's doing things that they weren't initially supposed to be doing on that job, but they're expanding their job, whatever. And they've just completely turned that equation around where they're offering the value, and then it makes sense to pay them more. And it's a huge shift and not an easy one.
Indeed.com just came out with a pretty funny commercial of it like shows like two people at an interview and like the person goes, "So how can we ignore talking about compensation the whole time in like a nice way or something like that?" And I was like, that's pretty funny because like I mean it's like you go on a job listing and it says X and then you show up and they offer you X minus whatever. It's like, well, my expectation was this and now you're telling me I'm getting less. It just happened to my wife. She applied for a different position and they said, "We know that we originally said this. However, would you be willing to take this?" And the job was longer hours. And I was like, "Well, that doesn't make sense. And it's not remote. So you have to leave the house, you get paid less, and you have to work more." Uh, but they said they had a lot of growth opportunities. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. Tricky space. Show me the path, right? Show me the growth path.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it, but do you actually mean it?
Absolutely. Well, it is fun, back to the financial space, to find ads that are out in the marketplace that bring up those financial discussions. And some of them are funny and gifted. I'm not a huge TV watcher, so I miss most of them, but every now and then somebody will show me an ad that somebody has come up with for a particular company. And there's such cool lessons that can be learned in some pretty short little snippets. And I'm really grateful that in today's world, talking about money, for example, having the compensation discussion is becoming more acceptable, which I think is really necessary, because if we keep sweeping it under the rug, then we're going to continue to get the results that we've gotten, which are abysmal. And it is necessary to have, like you said, have a conversation around something that you may disagree with and bring those things to the forefront within families, within companies, within friends, marriages, obviously, all need to be having conversations around money more efficiently, more effectively, with less emotion, which is a really tall order.
Yeah, one of those commercials you mentioned, one of the funny ones I found was, "Do you want to leave a tip?"
Oh, tell me about it.
Like every time you go to like a coffee shop or somewhere, it's like, "Do you want to leave a tip?" It's like a little awkward. It's like, well, I don't know. I always just leave something just because I feel like it's good to at least give a little, even if I'm not feeling as generous that day. Because as a person that has feelings, emotions, I mean, we all have our bad days. And sometimes you're like, I really don't want a tip, but I'm still going to do it anyway because Sometimes giving a little, even if it's like 50 cents, it can make you feel good. But yeah, that was one of the funny ones.
I love it. I remember a time when I felt very restricted as it relates to cash flow. Cash flow issues do not go away, they just get bigger zeros on them. And I just felt like things were just stuck. And I really didn't feel like there was extra anywhere. And it was at the time that kiva.org came out. So Kiva is a place where you can give like $25 and they take that money to third world countries and they help entrepreneurs in those third world countries do amazing things with a total of $500 or whatever. So your 25 contributes to this. And it was a lending environment where the entrepreneur then could create this business and pay back the loan. And then it would happen over and over and over again. I think it's still around, kiva.org. So I popped on and gave $25. And I literally felt like that shifted things. And I can't point to any one specific thing that occurred next, but I felt like that give first attitude and just getting money to move a little bit was the impetus to get other things to be able to break free. And I would view I'm just going to at least give a little bit of a tip mentality to that in that same way. It's paying it forward. It's giving first. It's making sure that there's action occurring. Now we could probably have a whole conversation around how sometimes tips are not earned at all. Nevertheless, we'll trust that businesses get better in this space and learn what their clientele is looking for and provide a service that's worthy of tipping, which used to actually be done at the beginning of a transaction. Do you know what the word tip stands for? Do you remember it?
I don't.
I believe, and there may be different definitions of this, but I believe that it's to ensure promptness.
Hmm.
And it was provided up front, typically probably to a maitre d' or, even a server to ensure promptness. And I don't know when it shifted to become an after the fact and expected space. Clearly, after the fact, it shifted to that a long time ago, but today it is very much an expected space. And as we all know, every little uh, screen and thingy that we sign and put our credit card in has tip capability on it, even when it's going through the drive through and you wouldn't ever normally tip in that space. Somehow it's there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm looking forward personally to when there's more robots in the fast food arena.
Yeah. Yeah. To make things no emotion at all.
Well,
They're gonna do it. They're gonna serve it to you, regardless of how you treat them.
right, right. And sometimes I feel like a robot would serve me better than the current person that's standing in front of me.
Yeah. I mean, people have emotions, and sometimes those emotions, people have a hard time compartmentalizing those emotions. It's like I'm having a bad day. Well, I still gotta go to work. I still gotta put on my happy face.
Yep.
Um, you know, I know. I remember down in Tampa, Florida, Morgan Wallen was supposed to do a concert and he like wasn't feeling good, and so he like canceled the concert. And, like everyone was so upset, and I was like, people don't view you as a person. Like you can't get sick. You're Morgan Wallen. You're not allowed to get sick. You got to show up to this concert I've been waiting to go to. That I spent a lot of money on.
Yeah, that's a tough space. And as human beings, if we could just be a little bit more graceful in our lives, we would probably get a little better results.
For sure. Well, Kim, it's been fun. I'll make sure I put all the links for everything. If anyone wants to find those activities to do with their children, find your website, find all of the books that you have on Amazon, and we'll see everyone next time. Bye.
Sounds great.